Someone told you that you were too much, or maybe they told you that you were not enough. Too quiet, too intense, too sensitive, too serious, too inside your own head, too focused on things that other people do not seem to think about at all. And somewhere along the way, after hearing it enough times from enough people, you started to believe them. You started to think that the way your mind works is a problem that needs solving, that the way you process the world is a glitch in your system, that if you could just think the way other people seem to think, easily, lightly, without all the weight you carry, your life would finally feel like it was supposed to feel. Carl Jung spent decades studying this exact experience, and what he discovered is going to change the way you understand your own mind forever. You were never the problem. You were simply never given the right language for what you actually are. Jung noticed something early in his career that no one else in his field was paying attention to. People were not just different on the surface. They were different in the fundamental structure of how they experienced reality itself. Not different because of trauma, not different because of upbringing alone, not different because of choice or habit or moral failure. Different in the actual architecture of their minds, the way they gathered energy, the way they made decisions, the way they took in information, the way they organized the world into something they could understand and move through. He watched brilliant people completely misunderstand each other, not because either of them was wrong, but because they were operating from entirely different psychological orientations. He watched people spend their entire lives feeling broken for a way of being that was never broken. It was just different, and the world had never handed them a framework that made that difference visible. So Jung built one. He started with what he believed was the most fundamental difference between human minds. Not intelligence, not talent, not emotional capacity. Something more basic than all of that, where you get your energy. Jung discovered that some people are energized by the outer world, by people, by activity, by engagement, by the constant movement of external experience. When they are around others, they come alive. When they are alone for too long, something in them goes quiet in a way that feels like fading. He called this orientation extroversion. And then he discovered something that the entire world had been getting wrong for centuries. He discovered that other people, a significant portion of the human population, are energized by the inner world, by solitude, by reflection, by the rich interior life that most people never even know they are carrying. These people do not fade when they are alone. They come alive. They process the world deeply before they respond to it. They think before they speak. They feel before they act. He called this introversion, and he said, clearly, firmly in direct opposition to everything his culture believed, that neither one was superior. Neither one was a problem to be fixed. They were simply two different and equally valid ways of being human. Now I want you to stop for a moment, because I need you to feel this and not just understand it intellectually. If you are someone whose mind works on the inside, who needs silence to think, who finds large social gatherings draining rather than exciting, who processes experiences deeply and often privately, who has spent your life being told you are too quiet or too serious or not enough fun, I need you to hear what Jung was saying directly to you. You are not broken. Your nervous system is not malfunctioning. You are not missing something that other people have. You are introverted. And introversion, the very thing you may have spent years trying to overcome or apologize for or hide, is not a lesser way of being in the world. It is a different one, and Jung believed it was one of the most valuable ones, because the introvert carries something the extrovert often cannot access as easily: depth. But Jung did not stop there, because he understood that introversion and extroversion alone could not explain the full complexity of how different human minds actually work. So he went deeper. He discovered 4 fundamental functions, 4 different ways that human beings take in and process the world around them. And these 4 functions changed everything. The first is sensing. Some people experience the world primarily through what is concrete and immediate and real. They trust facts. They trust their 5 senses. They trust what they can touch and see and measure and verify. They are grounded in the present moment in a way that others find both steadying and occasionally frustrating. These are the people who remember details others forget, who notice when something in the room has changed, who bring a kind of practical intelligence to problems that cuts through abstraction and gets directly to what is actually there. The second is intuition. And if sensing is about what is, intuition is about what could be. Some people experience the world primarily through pattern and possibility and meaning. They are drawn to what lies beneath the surface. They make connections that others cannot see yet. They live slightly ahead of the present moment, always sensing what is coming, always reading between the lines, always aware of the shape of something before it has fully formed. These are the people who have always known things they could not explain how they knew, who finish other people's sentences, who walk into a situation and immediately sense its entire emotional architecture. The world often calls these people strange. Jung called them intuitive. And he said their gift, the ability to perceive meaning and pattern and possibility beneath the surface of things, is one of the rarest and most valuable forms of human intelligence. The third is thinking. Some people make sense of the world primarily through logic, through analysis, through the satisfaction of a problem that has been examined from every angle and resolved in a way that is objectively sound. These are the people who can separate emotion from evaluation, who can look at a difficult situation clearly without being pulled into its emotional current, who bring a kind of precision to life that cuts through noise and finds the actual truth. And the fourth is feeling. Not feeling as in emotion, not feeling as in being swept away by what you experience. Feeling, as Jung meant, it is a function of evaluation, of determining what matters, of knowing not through logic, but through a deep inner sense of what is aligned with your values, what is true to who you are, what serves the things that are worth serving. Some people make decisions not by analyzing but by knowing, by feeling the rightness or wrongness of something in a place that is deeper than logic and more reliable than explanation. The world often dismisses these people, tells them they are too emotional, too subjective, too guided by feeling in a world that rewards rational analysis. Jung said they are not too emotional. They are operating from one of the most sophisticated forms of human intelligence that exists, the ability to evaluate through depth rather than data. Now here is where it gets personal, because you are reading this with a specific mind, a specific combination of these orientations and functions that is entirely yours. That was not chosen by you consciously, but was woven into the fundamental structure of how you process being alive. And somewhere in the description of these types, something landed differently than the rest. Something felt like recognition, not like learning a new piece of information, like finally having words for something you have always known about yourself, but never been able to say clearly. That recognition, that quiet internal yeah, is not coincidence. That is your psychological type announcing itself. Jung believed something that I want you to hold very carefully. He said that psychological type is not a limitation. It is an orientation, a natural and completely valid way of being in the world that carries specific gifts and specific challenges and a specific kind of intelligence that the world desperately needs, even when it does not know how to value it. The problem is never the type itself. The problem is when a person spends their entire life being asked to function as a different type than they actually are. The introvert who has been performing extroversion for decades, the intuitive who has been forcing themselves to operate in a world that only rewards sensing, the feeling type who has been told their entire life that their way of knowing is not rigorous enough to be trusted. These people are not failing, they are exhausted. There is a profound difference. Think about the version of yourself you perform for the world, the one that shows up on time and says the right things and moves at the pace the environment demands and processes information the way the room requires and makes decisions in the way that is considered normal and acceptable and sane. Now think about the version of yourself that exists when no one is watching, the one that needs more time than you are given, that thinks in a way that does not translate easily into conversation, that knows things it cannot prove, that feels things it cannot justify, that is moved by things other people do not seem to notice, and unmoved by things everyone else seems to care about deeply. That second version is not your failure. That is your type. That is the actual structure of your mind, trying to exist in a world that was not designed around it. And the exhaustion you feel, that specific tiredness that has nothing to do with how much sleep you got, is the exhaustion of spending every day translating yourself into a language that is not native to you. Jung said that the greatest gift a person can give themselves is self-knowledge, not in the abstract, not in the theoretical. Real self-knowledge, the kind that says, this is how my mind actually works. This is how I actually gather energy and make decisions and take in the world. This is the specific kind of intelligence I carry, and I am going to stop apologizing for it. Because here is the truth that Jung kept returning to throughout his entire career. The world does not need everyone to be the same type. It needs the sensor and the intuitive, the thinker and the feeler, the introvert and the extrovert. It needs the person who is grounded in what is real and the person who can see what is coming, the person who can analyze and the person who can know. It needs all of it. It needs you, the specific, particular, entirely unrepeatable configuration of mind that you were born with, not the version you've been editing to make yourself more palatable. The actual version, the one that thinks too deeply and feels too much and knows things it cannot explain and needs more silence than the world seems comfortable giving. That version. There is something Jung wrote that I have thought about many times. He said that the most dangerous thing for a person is not their weakness. It is the unlived expression of their strength. The intuitive who stop trusting their knowing. The feeler who learned to override their depth. The introvert who convinced themselves that their need for solitude was a character flaw to be corrected. These people did not lose their gifts. They buried them under years of being told that the way their mind works is inconvenient. Too slow, too internal, too much, not enough. Wrong. And the unlived gift, the one they buried to stay acceptable, did not disappear. It turned inward. It became the restlessness that will not quiet, the sense of something missing that achievements cannot fill, the deep and nameless grief of a mind that has never been fully allowed to be what it actually is. So here is what I want you to take from this. Not a personality quiz, not a label, not a box to put yourself in and call it self-knowledge. Something quieter than that. Permission. Permission to be the specific kind of mind you actually are, without spending one more day treating it as a problem. Permission to need what you need. The silence, the depth, the time, the interior life, without framing it as a deficiency. Permission to trust the way you know things, even when you cannot explain the mechanism to someone who only trusts logic. Permission to be moved by what moves you, even when others cannot see why it matters. Permission to be exactly the kind of intelligence you were born with. Fully, without apology, without the constant low-grade shame of a mind that has never been allowed to exist in its natural form. Jung spent his entire career watching people transform the moment they finally understood their own psychological type. Not because the label changed anything, but because the understanding did. Because there is something that happens in a person when they stop fighting the fundamental structure of their own mind and start working with it. Something settles. Some war that has been running so long they forgot it was even happening finally goes quiet. And in that quiet, in that specific stillness of a mind that has finally been given permission to be what it is, something begins to emerge that was always trying to exist. Not a new self. The real one. The one that was there before the world started telling you that the way your mind works is something you should be ashamed of. That self has been waiting, with more patience than you have ever given yourself credit for. And it has never once stopped believing that you would eventually find your way back to it. The way your mind works was never the problem. The problem was a world that only had room for one kind of intelligence and called everything else a flaw. You were never too much. You were always exactly enough. You just needed someone to finally say it in a language your mind could actually hear.